Good morning, and welcome to Benji fooling around with the 3DO mic on a lazy Sunday when I have the house to myself. I'm not in the ideal soundscape here. I have a high ceiling in the office. I have the clock going, but when I was in my early teens, possibly 11 or 12, actually, my mother would often have to pick me up from school and then go back to work. And there were these long stretches of time where I would just be wandering around a pretty much abandoned office building while my mother, slaved away in front of a computer, putting together slides and spreadsheets and slideshows and all that stuff. So, to make this a little easier for me, often we would stop off at the bookstore before we would go, and I would wander through the aisles and pick something out, and, God bless her forever for doing that. I was not a big poetry guy. I liked books, but it felt like every time I'd try to get into poetry, I would just, fall asleep or just not connect with it. And then I'm wandering through the aisles of Barnes and Noble. I'm on the clock here. I've got to choose something, and there is a plain spine on the poetry bookshelf that says, "Love is a dog from hell." And I mean, how do you not, right? I feel like Charles Bukowski is not as obscure now as he used to be. Because I feel like a lot of people cite Bukowski as a favorite poet, and I'm glad about that. But I feel like at one point, at least I'm relating it as a teen in middle school and high school. You're like, have you heard of Charles Bukowski? Who are you talking about? But now I am a much older man, and people have read books. But what I love about Bukowski, and what I think maybe contemporary critics, or maybe critics at the time. Did you hear the gate? Can you hear that through the mic? It's loud, isn't it? I have to deal with that every time I record. It's banging all day. But I think Bukowski's critics would accuse him of being a chauvinist and a misogynist. And it's not that he is not those things, but and again, this is one man's opinion. I think many critics miss the fact that Bukowski was very aware of his own failings in that regard, and that he plays up his chauvinism and misogyny in his poems. I think it is a mistake to take the majority of his poems for what they are on their face. It is almost always, Bukowski examining his own masculinity and his own manhood and playing around with that. And I love that. Because there are a lot of contradictions and paradoxes of being a man and trying to be manly. But also being beholden to your masculine programming, really. Love is a dog from hell. Let's talk about this. I have some poems I would like to read amidst the banging and the dogs barking and the clock ticking, because I think that's how he would like it. And I'm too lazy to take the clock off the wall and go into the closet, and this is a much nicer view than staring at my button-up shirts, which I do not wear because I work from home. Where are we even going now? Um, where was the long one? I have a long one in here to make sure I finish with that one. Yeah, I think that's The Days Run Away. Let me double check. Yes, okay, we'll do that one last. So, I did not know that the first apartment I lived in Los Angeles was actually just a matter of blocks away from one of the apartments that he lived in. And I was so furious at myself for never knowing that, never looking it up. But where I live now, I am actually a not that far car ride from the last house that he lived in San Pedro. And he also is buried in San Pedro. And I have visited his grave with my family. It was wonderful. And I will always remember that as we were just all of us standing around there, a cop car rolled up and just stopped and just sort of hung out there. Well, it was just us in this plot. And it could have been a coincidence, but I would imagine that grave is a site of pretty frequent pilgrimage. And I'm sure that people have done all sorts of nutty things over there. I mean, I myself had a flask of whiskey, which I poured out surreptitiously while I was there. But I also have to just wonder, the cop was staring at me and my wife and two toddlers standing over the grave of Charles Bukowski. What were they going to do, that malevolent nuclear family? Anyway. Now this might be my favorite collection of his poems. It is Play the Piano Drunk Like a Percussion Instrument Until the Fingers Begin to Bleed a Bit. I would love it for that title alone. But I think that it does have one of the most... it is probably the shortest collection of his stuff, but the stuff in here is also just... it's the good stuff. I find that my favorite Bukowski poems are the ones that are... I like his earlier stuff better. I do, though. His earlier stuff is when he's really, he's down and out. He's working at the post office. He is disgusted with himself and the world. He's old. He hasn't, found success. He's working at it, but he doesn't really know what it is. And then as he gets older and he does get successful, his poems are more about like, well, I took the cat out and my wife kissed me goodbye when she went to go buy groceries, and everything's fine. I'm fine. I'm still writing poems. How are you? They're still good, but the earlier ones are the ones that's like, yeah. This one is The Days Run Away Like Wild Horses Over the Hills. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait for that. Here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? These mad windows that taste life and cut me if I go through them. I've always lived on second and third floors or higher, all my life. But I got some woman pregnant, and since she wasn't my wife, we moved over here. We were in the back at first, second floor rear, as Mr. and Mrs. A new start. And there was a mad woman in this place, and she kept the shades drawn and hollered obscenities in the dark. I thought she was pretty sharp, but they took her away one day, and we moved in here and had the baby. A beautiful skunk of a child with pale blue eyes who made me swallow my heart like a cherry in a chilled drink. But the woman decided I was insane too and moved the child and herself to Hollywood, and I give them what money I can. But most of the time I lay around all day, sweating in bed, wondering how much longer I can fool them, listening to my landlord outside, watering his lawn, 46 years hanging on my bones, and big green tears cascade, down my face, and are tabulated by my dirty pillow. All those years shot through the head, assassinated forever, drunk, senseless, hobbled and slugged in factories, poked with bad dreams, dripping away in mouse and ghost-infested rooms across an America without meaning. Boy, oh boy. About 3 p.m. I get up, having failed to sleep, but more than a few minutes anyhow, and then I put on an old undershirt, crisp, fresh, torn shorts, and a pair of stolen army pants, and I pull up the shades and sit a little back in a hard folding chair near a window on the street side, and then they come by, young girls, fresh, fluid, divine, intelligent, drinks of orange juice, rides in air-conditioned elevators in blue and green and yellow, in motion, in red, in waves, in squads, and battalions of laughter. They laugh at me and for me, old 46, at attention, pig green eyes like a Van Gogh bursting and breaking, the trachea and tits of the earth and the sun. My God, look, here I am, and no matter what I said to them, they would run away. I would be reported as an old goof, babbling in the marketplace for hard pennies. They expect me to use the bathroom, a shadow picture for their singing flesh, and the pliers of my hand. A good citizen jacks off, votes, and looks at Bob Hope, and even old maids with husbands killed making swivel chairs in industry. They walk by in green, in yellow, in red, and they have bodies like high school girls. They perch on their stilts and dare me to break custom. But to have any of these would take weeks and months of torture, introduction, niceties, conversation that cleaves the soul like a rusty axe. No, goddammit, no more. A man who cannot adjust to society is called a psychotic, and the boy in the Texas Tower who shot 49 and killed 15 was one. Although in the Marine Corps he got the okay to go ahead. It's all in the way you're dressed. And if the Beehive says the project protects the Queen and Goodyear rubber and so forth, but the way I see it from this window, his action was nothing extraordinary or unexpected, and psychiatrists are just paid liars of a continuing social disorder. And soon I get up from the window and move around, and if I turn on the radio and luck on Shostakhovich or Mailer or sit down to type a letter to the president, the voices begin all around me. Hey, knock it off, you son of a bitch! We'll call the law! On each side of me are 2 high-rise apartments, things lit at night with blue and green lights, and they have swimming pools that everybody has, too much class to get into. But the rent is very high, and they sit looking at their walls, decorated with pictures of people with chopped-off heads, and wait to go back to work. Meanwhile, they sense that my sounds are not their sounds. 66 people on each side of my head, in love with green berets and piranhas. God damn you, cool it! These I cannot see through my window, and for this I am glad. My stomach is in bad shape from drinking cheap wine, and so for them, I become quiet. I listen to their sounds. Their baseball games, their comedies, their quiz shows, their dry kisses, their kindling safety, their hard bodies stuffed into the walls and murdered. And I go to the table, take my madman's crayons and begin drawing them on my walls, all of them, loving, fucking, eating, shitting, frightened of Christ, frightened of poverty, frightened of life. They crawl my walls like roaches, and I draw suns between them. And axes and guns and towers and babies and dogs, cats, animals, and it becomes difficult to distinguish the animal from the other, and my whole body sweats, stinks, as I tremble like a liar from the truth of things. And then I drink some water, take off my clothing, and go to bed, where I will not sleep, first pulling down all the shades and then waiting for 3 p.m., my girls, my ladies, my way, with nothing going through and nothing coming in and nothing going out, cathedrals and art museums and mountains wasted, only the salt of myself, some ants, old newspapers, my shame at not having killed, razor, car crash, turpentine, gas pipe, good job, marriage, investments in the market, what is left of myself. Do yourself some good. Read some Charles Bukowski.